do that afterwards. So this is the example we're going to use. So we're going to talk about activating voices with 100% engagement. So we're going to talk about Harkn here. So in terms of delivering Harkn as a continuous listening tool, for us, some key delivery areas are this. So there's one around adopting the technology. So how do we, so it's twofold, right? So it's a new way of working culturally, right, in terms of listening. And then it's also a technology that we're introducing as well. So how do we build interest, buy-in, get people to use Harkn? And, you know, it's sort of all those bits and pieces in terms of like implementing new change and something new. And so getting everyone on board. And then the second phase is boosting and maintaining participation, right? So how are we embedding this as new ways of working? How are we ensuring it's a safe go-to place for people to speak up and listening and showing that their voices matter? The more people that use Harkn, it provides a clearer picture of life inside your organization because it shows morale, the sort of, you know, anonymous conversation and dialogue going on the wall. It talks about what matters to people, what their concerns are, what they're happy about, what they're celebrating, you know, supporting one another. And then the third phase or sort of a delivery area that we have to think about is once we've been, you know, so we're listening, we're pulling out key insights, what do we then do with that information? So acting on feedback, you know, in areas where it requires some business change based on, you know, what your people are telling you, you know, how are we engaging people as being part of the solution, that type of thing. So what I've done here is I've taken the tool, and at the top I've done the 3 phases. So the little lines here sort of delineate the different areas. Now, as I said, with the idea of the blueprint, you'll see that there are no lines across the awareness piece. And in this scenario, when I was doing the example, I realized that whether we're talking about adoption, boosting participation, or talking about the insight-driven change, it didn't make a huge difference. So I just, here, I'll put the examples here around awareness. It didn't really matter in this scenario whether it was under one or the other. But if, for example, if you were talking about employee types, people in the office, people in the field, remote staff, for example, then how you contact them in this scenario with awareness, it would matter. And they could be in each column, specific to each column. But in this scenario, it didn't really matter, so I've left it open. So that's a customization here, just depending on the context. Right, so how are we reaching people? Internet articles, posters, bulletin boards, new employee packs from HR. So every new employee who comes in would learn about Harkn and know that it's there and what it does and how it's used and all of that kind of stuff. Word of mouth, so champions or other enthusiasts. I mean, that could be, for example, that could be a part of your activities with everyone. It could just be something, you know, talk to your new colleagues about it. All staff emails, social media, Microsoft Teams announcements, team meetings, all staff meetings, operational meetings, you know, however you contact or communicate with your stakeholders normally. Then moving on to discovery. So this is the adoption phase that we're looking at now. So launch events, challenges, and as I said before, talking about campaigns. So campaigns by topic. So depending on, for example, Harkn supports culture change, well-being, inclusion, psychological safety. So if any of those were of particular interest to your organization, you could do campaigns by any of those topics to get people involved. Webinars, catalyst events are events that lots of people always have things in the back of their mind that they feel like they should be doing. Like when I used to coordinate sustainability events, we used to have this commuter challenge event, sustainable commuting event that we did every year. And it was this scenario where so many people are like, yeah, I've always been meaning to like figure out a route to bike to work or carpool or take the bus or, whatever the thing is, but they just never do it. There's no real reason for them to do it. Everyone's busy, la, la, la. But every year when we would do the commuter challenge, it gave people the sort of impetus to actually seek out the information. Or some people would bike with other people. They're like, oh, you bike? I bike. I'd like to bike. Can I bike with you? Or carpooling. They seek out people around them. So it gives them the push to actually do the thing that they said they should be doing. So yeah, webinars, relaunch campaigns. So we talk about adoption when it first starts, but if you get a group of people starting in the beginning and then you want to sort of give another round to get people using Harkn, you could have a relaunch campaign that sort of drums up more interest. Exploring. So we're going to go straight down. We'll do adoption first, then we'll do boost and maintain participation, and then we'll do insight-driven change. So exploring, for example, and I'm not going to do loads here. I'm just giving some examples. So exploring, training for line managers. That's sort of a medium touch activity. You can do webinars on specific topics that are of interest to people. And again, with Harkn, you're always listening every day. There's loads of anonymous conversation going on the wall. So there'll be lots of ways to, come up with ideas on what you could be sort of doing different webinars or, other training on that people are looking for. Championing. So again, there's we have champions groups, so they could become a champion. Having leaders that are championing using Harkn from a cultural perspective, so working together to create and communicate listening and response plans. So the thing with having a listening platform, I mean, it's great. People can, speak up and share what's going on for them, but it equally is important that they're being listened to and that they understand who's listening and what's happening with the things that are being brought up. So there's the adoption piece. So next we're going to start going down and talking about boosting and maintaining participation. So how do we make sure, so, a launch happens, everyone's excited, everyone goes in and just to see what's going on, but how do we maintain that enthusiasm and usage sort of levels? So having so what happens in people's day-to-day life is very much influenced by their teams. So having line managers and team leaders encouraging their team to use Harkn and, talk to them about why it's important. On Harkn, there's an option to ask specific questions. So it's not just there's continuous dialogue, but if there is something that you see coming up and you'd like to know more about, you can ask a specific question and start a focused discussion right there on the wall. Sharing usage stats, because sometimes people think, oh, no one really uses that, but often the stats for Harkn are usually quite high. So I think it's quite useful to show, that lots of people are using it and sort of prompts people to sort of get on there if they think it's being more widely used. And then also the idea of sharing, changes. So what's been happening as a result of people speaking up? What's changed? What have they actioned? Exploring. So there's team room discussions on Harkn where you can have sort of focus group chats that are outside the wall, but anyone can join. Again, sharing usage stats and talking about what's happened as a result. Training champions, so building their ability to engage people on the wall and, help support and, act on insights and clarify things in different areas, because the champions are from around the business and, they know the people, they know what's going on. So you can often go to them as well to, for them to be involved in clarifying what's happening and seeking out information. So, the insight-driven change. So what do we do as a result of these insights? So again, questions on the Harkn wall, feedback from line managers on topics if something comes up, because often you'll see, oh, there's an issue. I see some information here, but how do I get more information to get to the bottom of what's going on so we can start addressing it? So there's some other ideas here. Solutions lunches. I used to do these a lot. When I was working in sustainability, when something would get raised and we'd get a lot of sort of feedback around, that it has been an issue and it's something that they would, people would like to address. We'd hold solutions lunches where people would come and discuss it. And it was actually quite a useful thing to do. Harkn team room discussions, involving so down to championing, involving champions and helping to lead change. Again, sharing changes and responses to insights. Next steps, again, I'll send this to you. You can read it all, but the first bit is really around calls to action. I have creating catalyst events here to get people involved, or then asking those who are already participating to involve others. Discovery. Again, you'll see here, I've just created some example calls to action or ways to get people involved. Because you can't just hope that they'll become really involved. You have to just provide the opportunity and then make sure there's space where they're being asked, or there's a call to action for them to act. Because often people would be quite happy to do it, but if they're not just going to turn up and volunteer for the most part. So if you provide the opportunities and the calls to action or ways for them to be invited, your participation rates will dramatically increase. Yeah, so basically as you get further up, you're creating more specialized tasks or different sort of leadership opportunities and training, professional development, and then having people get more involved in, leading on some of these things company-wide or even in their own areas. It depends on, what the insights are. So